Here's something strange. If you bought Slide It In the UK in 1984 and your friend bought it in America a few months later, you didn't actually buy the same album. Different guitarist, different bassist, different mix, almost a different band entirely. That's how unstable Whitesnake had become by this point. A group rebuilding itself in real time, member by member, while David Coverdale chased one goal above everything else, cracking America. By the time the dust settled on this era, the band will lose its guitarist, gain a new one, release two competing versions of the same record, and end with, allegedly, a literal backstage fistfight at one of the biggest festivals in rock history. Let's get into it. If you've been following this Deep Purple Family Tree series, you know Whitesnake had already been through the ringer once. The Saints and Sinners collapse saw Coverdale fire his own management and rebuild the band from scratch with Mel Galley, Cozy Powell, and Colin Hodgkinson. That rebuilt lineup, with Micky Moody back in the fold, is where Slide It In begins, and it wouldn't stay stable for long. Micky Moody was one of the last true originals left standing. He'd been there since Trouble in 1978, survived the Come and Get It sessions, got fired, and then rehired during the Saints and Sinners chaos, and helped write huge chunks of the band's catalog. But by 1984, the direction Coverdale wanted for Whitesnake had shifted hard, away from the bluesy pub rock foundation Moody had helped build, and towards something bigger, heavier, and far more calculated to break through in America. That shift didn't sit well with everyone. Moody's playing style was rooted in feel and blues phrasing, not the kind of flash and aggression American rock radio was starting to demand in the mid-'80s. As Coverdale pushed the band toward a harder, more metal-adjacent sound, Moody found himself increasingly out of step with where Whitesnake was heading. He exited the band in 1984, closing out a run that stretched back to the very earliest days of the group. One of the last threads connecting Slide It In to the Whitesnake that had started this whole journey. His replacement was about as different a player as you could find. John Sykes came over from Tigers of Pantang and later Thin Lizzy, a guitarist with blistering technical speed and much more explicitly metal sensibility than anything Whitesnake had featured before. Where Moody brought soul and groove, Sykes brought firepower. And that's exactly what Coverdale was looking for. Sykes' arrival marked a real turning point in the band's sound. This wasn't a lineup change where the new guy just filled an old slot. Sykes fundamentally altered what Whitesnake was capable of, giving Coverdale the sharper, harder-edged guitar work he needed if the band was going to compete with the wave of American hard rock and metal acts dominating MTV and rock radio at the time. It's not an exaggeration to say Sykes' entrance set the stage for everything Whitesnake would become over the next few years. Now here's where things get genuinely unusual. Slide It In was originally recorded and released in the UK in early 1984 with the rebuilt lineup: Coverdale, Moody, Mel Galley, Colin Hodgkinson, Jon Lord, and Cozy Powell on drums. That version reflected where the band had been. But when Geffen Records picked up the album for American release, they weren't satisfied with how it sounded for the US market, so the label had it substantially reworked. Sykes came in to re-record and add new guitar parts. Neil Murray returned to re-record the bass work in place of Hodgkinson, and the whole thing was remixed by Keith Olsen to give it a punchier, more radio-friendly sheen suited to American rock stations. The result was two genuinely different listening experiences carrying the same title: a bluesier, more organic UK pressing, and a tighter, harder-hitting US version, the latter of which was built specifically to chase American success. And it worked. The American version of Slide It In became a significant commercial breakthrough for Whitesnake in the US, eventually going double platinum, proof that Coverdale's relentless restructuring of the band, however chaotic, was finally paying off where it mattered most to him. So with two different lineups and two different mixes floating around, what actually stood out on Slide It In, a handful of tracks, and they tell you a lot about where Whitesnake's sound was headed. The title track Slide It In opens the album Exactly the kind of swagger you'd expect. A riff-driven, unapologetically suggestive rocker that sets the tone for the harder edge direction Coverdale was chasing. It's brash, it's simple, and it works precisely because it doesn't overthink itself. This is a band aiming straight for arena sing-alongs, not blues club subtlety. Slow and Easy is where you can really hear the two versions of the album pull apart. The UK take carries more of that loose, groove-driven, moody era feel, like I've never known before, while a reworked American mix tightens everything up. Sharper guitars, punchier drums, built for rock radio rather than a smoky club. It's practically a case study in what Geffen was trying to accomplish by reworking the record for the US market in the first place. Then there's Love Ain't No Stranger, which became one of the record's most enduring tracks and one of the singles. It's got that mid-tempo, hook-heavy structure Coverdale had been chasing since Come and Get It. Big chorus, confident vocal performance, built to translate well on MTV. The song got a proper music video, and it did real work introducing American audiences to this new, hard-hitting version of Whitesnake. Give Me More Time and All for Nothing round out the album's more aggressive stretch, both leaning into the tighter, metal-adjacent sound that Sykes' guitar work brought to the American remix. You can hear the band visibly reaching for a harder, more contemporary edge here, less blues rock revitalism, more of the polished hard rock sound dominating American radio in the mid-80s. As for the singles, Love Ain't No Stranger and the title track Slide It In carried most of the promotional weight, both getting pushed hard on rock radio on MTV as the band worked to build a real foothold in the American market. Commercially, the strategy paid off. The American version of the album climbed to platinum and eventually double platinum status, a career best result for Whitesnake at that point. What's fascinating listening back is how clearly you can hear the transition happening in real time. The bluesier tracks and looser arrangements, still tied to Moody's era, sit right alongside the tighter, more aggressive cuts shaped by Sykes and the American remix team. Slide It In isn't a fully unified artistic statement. It's a band mid-transformation, one foot still in the blues rock roots, and the other already stepping into the harder, more polished sound that would define its biggest commercial moment just a few years later. But success brought its own problems. By late 1984, with the album's American numbers climbing fast, the band members weren't seeing the financial rewards match the record's performance, and nobody was less willing to accept that than Cozy Powell. Powell wasn't some hired session player. He'd anchored Rainbow and the Michael Schenker Group, and he had zero interest in being treated like an employee. When Coverdale put new contract terms in front of him for the next album cycle, Powell found the royalty splits unacceptable. He held his ground, Coverdale wouldn't budge, and the two hit a stalemate that couldn't be repaired. In December 1984, during a tense band meeting, Powell formally handed in his notice. But true to his professionalism, he agreed to finish out his live commitments rather than leave the band stranded. Those final commitments culminated in two historic shows at the very first Rock in Rio Festival on January 11th and 19th, 1985, in front of a staggering 250,000 fans. Powell went out playing with his full thunderous intensity, and the band even worked part of Deep Purple's Burn into the set, a fitting nod given how deep the Deep Purple roots ran through this entire lineup. It should have been a clean, triumphant send-off. It wasn't. According to accounts from those close to the bands, tensions had been building for months, finally exploded backstage after the final Rock in Rio set, allegedly boiling over into an actual physical fight between Powell and Coverdale. Powell packed his bags in the dressing room that night and was gone from Whitesnake camp for good. He didn't stay idle for long. Powell immediately teamed up with Keith Emerson and Greg Lake to form Emerson, Lake, and Powell. As for Whitesnake, Coverdale brought in journeyman drummer Isley Dunbar to handle the next chapter. And amid all this upheaval, one more piece of the puzzle fell away. Jon Lord, the last remaining link back to Deep Purple's classic lineup. The one member who stuck with Coverdale through every single iteration of Whitesnake since the very beginning was gone too. But this wasn't a firing. It wasn't a falling out. It was a reunion. Deep Purple's Mark II lineup was getting back together, and Lord's place was right there waiting for him. After years of holding Whitesnake keyboard chair through every lineup collapse, every management shakeup, every version of the band, Jon Lord finally went home. Which means our next stop on this family tree isn't another Whitesnake chapter, it's Deep Purple's own reunion record, Perfect Strangers. So stick around, because we're about to see where Jon Lord's story leads next. And the next chapter of Whitesnake is a big one, with Sykes now anchoring the guitar, Coverdale rebuilding the band once again, and America finally starting to pay attention. Whitesnake was about to release the album that would turn them into full-blown metal superstars. Next episode, we're covering the self-titled 1987 record, the one with the songs you already know, the videos that ruled MTV, and the lineup changes that, unbelievably, still weren't finished. So check out the playlist on the screen. It's the entire story of Deep Purple, and I'm including all adjacent bands, the Ian Gillan Band, Gillan, Whitesnake, Rainbow, select Black Sabbath albums, and maybe a few others. I'm not going to branch out too far because it will be endless, but at this point, I should be covering more Deep Purple albums because they will be getting back together as I'm in 1984. So, like, subscribe. See you in the next one.